hey everyone, thanks for joining us. And this is actually an update to our 20 Eclipse Masterclass. So for this space study, we're just really going to deep dive on Taurus and Scorpio. And for anything, for like a deeper dive on what eclipses are all about, what the nodes are all about, you can check out last year's video. Hola, Karina.
Hello, amazing. Thank you, Thea. All right, so yeah, like you said, we're just gonna talk more about like the Scorpio Taurus axis because that's where we're going into. The guards are changing, and we'll get more into that later about what that even means and which is going to be in the south and which is going to be in the north node. But let's go first to something that we basically do, which is pull up the chart and understand the aspects a little bit more so that we can point things out and see what's really calling our attention most.
So we're talking about the chart of this full moon or this coming full moon eclipse for all of y'all. Okay, so what's really striking here is the opposition between Mars and Uranus. So this opposition hasn't happened for a while. If I'm correct, I think the last time this happened was 2 years ago. And what's even major is it's at the same time of an eclipse. And as we know, eclipses are already like super major full moons or new moons on steroids. And full moons are a time of culmination. It's a time where you acknowledge something. It's also a time where a lot of shadows maybe revealed. Like eclipses are actually shadow plays, and with Mars opposing Uranus, there may be some sudden realization of something that needs to be separated from you because Mars separates. But Mars at home in Scorpio is really also about revealing a lot of what has been repressed or what has been suppressed. So anything that does not serve you anymore or that has been repressed or suppressed for a while, there may be like sudden revelations or shocks that actually cause you to separate from this or at least acknowledge it. There's also a partile or an exact sextile with Venus and Capricorn who's trining Uranus and Taurus. So Venus in Capricorn is all about owning up to your worth or understanding your worth. So whatever is being revealed by Mars is being supported by Taurus. So whatever change is coming up for you is supported by that towards your, or at least towards the values that you find yourself more aligned with. How about you, Karina? What do you see?
Okay, so as you were talking, I wrote down shadow play during Scorpio season because eclipses are already, shadowy and interesting. And we're in Scorpio season, and Scorpio really gives us the chance to look deeper at the shadow. Do you think that adds an extra shadowy vibe to it? Or do you think it adds a more like magical vibe that allows us to see deeper and to really be able to make the changes, because Scorpio is also about transformation and death and rebirth, right? So maybe accepting that, okay, this has to die so that something can be reborn. And finally facing the taboo with death, like the word death.
Or like having a different relationship with death and the taboo and the occult and all these things, because another major transit here is Saturn sextiling Chiron and Aries. And I feel like I've been talking about Chiron retrograde and Aries a lot, which is our wounded identity, our wounded patriarchy, our wounded masculinity, essentially like our wounds, our identity wounds, because Chiron is our wounds and Aries is our identity or our I am, or at least how we initiate something and our fire sort of. And with Saturn sextiling that, that's an extra support of like whatever this full moon is bringing up for you. It's sort of for you to own up to it and be like, are you really going to change this, or are you just going to allow whatever it is that's been holding you back to keep holding you back?
So well said.
Again, so many, there's so many other aspects and transits that we can talk about here. But so that's what's happening on Friday. So guys, at least whatever triggers that may come up for you, we hope that you come from how we always say is how you be more responsible with how you respond instead of reacting from your trauma and wounds. A bunch of big words, not easy, but like this is why we do what we do and why we gather, right? So we keep having or cultivating the tools that we need to have a more responsible life or outlook. But with that, so that's the full moon that's coming up, and it's an eclipse. It's a partial lunar eclipse. I maybe we can.
Are we going to see it from here?
We're not going to see it from here because moonrise is around
4. Yeah.
like 5:20. That's around the time of the sunset. So by the time it rises, by the time the moon rises, the eclipse would have been over.
Done.
So we may still see like a partial shadow, but it's nothing like super, like it's not a total lunar eclipse. It's still a big deal energetically because of these transits, right? And this Mars Uranus opposition. I also want to share that it's a north node lunar eclipse. So there's something that should be assimilated or something that has to be worked into. So since it's Taurus, we're going to dive deeper into like what we're supposed to be assimilating. So on the one hand, we're culminating something, but on the other hand, there's something that we should be assimilating. And I feel like it's really all about worth. What is worth to us? And how can we assimilate more of what we value?
I've really understood how important it is not to limit ourselves to beliefs that we think we have. I think that's been really big because that has such great potential to hold us down or to make us do certain things that we don't necessarily believe in anymore. Especially with Uranus being in Taurus, asking us, come on, change, come on, let's change. So I think a belief system changes has been a big thing. Understanding more about how important community is has been a big thing for me. Like even though I'm not posting so much on Instagram, still knowing that, you know, this Starry Vibes account exists and I have all of these friends that I've made through the account, like community has become so key and is something that I think we're only going to start realizing more and more with the North Node moving into Taurus as well, because then we start finding communities that have the same values as us. But again, I don't know. I'm getting a feeling that like the way we think of values and the way we feel our worth and the way we even understand and sense things is going to change while we have the North Node in Taurus. How about you? What's been coming up for you?
So this is right smack Sagittarius and my sun. So also like what you said, right? A lot of beliefs, old beliefs, and that there's just really so many ways to go about skinning a cat. Like there's not one way to skin a cat. I think that's what came up to me. And like all the information, like just such information overload. It's been such a wild, noisy past 18 months for me. Like all the information that is coming up in the ether, all the data revolution that's been happening, but also community. The same as you, we found our tribe. We keep finding our tribe, and all the people that are more open to the perspectives that we share, albeit of course not without resistance. The resistance is there and it's very strong. I feel the polarity so much and it's playing out very loudly in my life. But this should be interesting. Whatever beliefs and whatever different points of views and perspectives we actually gained the past 18 months are going to need to shift into, so okay, you learned a lot. You sort of like opened to a wider vista the past 18 months, how can you now gather everything into your own little bubble again and really discern and deliberate what should stick for you? Like, sort of, what is your foundational ideology all over again? Is what I feel like with the changing of the guards. So with that,
I like how you said foundational ideology. So key.
okay, so these are a bunch of symbols and a bunch of glyphs, but we hope, at least Karina and I, we hope that you're gonna feel into this as we flow instead of the usual words, because Taurus, right? Taurus is earth and all about embodiment. So yeah, I'll just get into it. So this is where we are right now. We are in the Gemini. We have the North Node in Gemini, and we have the South Node in Sagittarius. So briefly, we're trying to get away from or move away from being dogmatic, being just holding one perspective or one version of truth, because that's Sagittarius, or just having one strict or rigid belief, and being more open to different perspectives. This axis is also all about travel. So Gemini is short distance, Sagittarius is long distance. Deeper dive on Gemini and Sagittarius, again, is available in the bonus of our last year's Eclipse Masterclass. But I just, we want you guys to feel into like the changing of the guards. So we call the nodes the guards because this is where our collective evolution is going towards. So from Gemini, it's mutable air, to Taurus, it's fixed earth. So from up, both of them going up, to down. So even with that, we're already sort of getting that we're supposed to build new foundations. We're supposed to anchor down energies into our bodies. It's an anchoring in. So from whatever we get up here, we anchor it down, not actually in and then out, which happened, or which has been happening the past 18 months. Rulerships also change from Mercury, Gemini, which is like all about, sharing, socializing, albeit it was, a pandemic and lockdown. We're sort of feeling people getting together again, getting together, partying, like enjoying Venusian things. So that's going to be the next 18 months with Taurus being ruled by Venus. And from our South Node being ruled by Jupiter, which is like really expanding the rigidity of dogma, to Mars and Pluto, which is all about separation and change, and mutability to fixed. But I'm going to touch up more on why fixed still comes down to mutability in a while. So yeah, how about you, Karina? What do you feel and what do you see?
I feel like Taurus and Scorpio, it's funny because as you were talking, you're such a good embodiment of like this Gemini Sag energy, because you literally are a Sag and you get to experience this Gemini opposition. And so I was also thinking about how then I feel so connected to Taurus energy, and also so connected to Scorpio energy because both my mom and fiance are Scorpios. So I think it's funny because sometimes I feel like I'm so close that I don't know how to speak about it until I step back and I'm like, wait a second, I don't need to know how to speak about it. I just need to allow it to flow through. And that's very feminine. And that's what I was thinking of as I was looking at this glyphs. Like we're going from masculine to feminine. We're going from action and needing to do things and needing to fight and needing to get on the streets to flowing. And how can we soften? How can we be kinder? How can we appreciate more of the beauty, but still understand, as Gemini has taught us, there's always going to be a polarity. So there's always going to be a pushback. There's always going to be opposition. There's always going to be Mars coming up being like, yeah, I see you and your beauty and positivity, but who are you to think that you can think that all the time? And then there's Taurus being like, yo, what are you talking about? Do you remember where you're living? You're living on planet Earth. And planet Earth is essentially Taurus. It's essentially the Earth. It's essentially everything that's around us. And so when this like argumentative nature of Scorpio and Mars and Pluto comes about, and we start questioning, okay, what's happening? I don't know why, but immediate thing is like, go outside, go to the earth, because it's all loud. It's all loud. We know it. We started this by saying that we have the Mars Uranus opposition. We have that exact on Thursday. And so, with all this noise, it's very important to remember where we're even living, who's even holding us up. I remember when I would do Akashic record readings while planets were moving into Taurus. A lot of the question was, are you caring for the earth the way you care for yourself? Are you even appreciating the earth? Do you know that when you cry, the earth cries, and when you're in pain, the earth holds you up? But how about when the earth is in pain? Who's holding the earth up? And so I feel like these themes are going to get so much louder. And that's why the call to go back to the earth to deal with these shadows and these questions is so important, because these shadows sometimes can pull us down. Seeing what's going on with the earth, seeing what's going on with people, seeing how humans are like fighting left and right, seeing how this 3D reality is not even all it is anymore. But then understanding that I guess I want to say sensing things adds a little bit of context, but still doesn't give us the full picture, because again, as we've learned from Gemini, as much as we're appreciating the beauty, we also still have to appreciate and go into the darkness. I don't know though how much more darkness we can go into, because it feels like we've been going on into darkness for a while, into this like death, transformation, birth, rebirth, death, transformation, death, birth, transformation. Like it just keeps changing. And to a certain degree, I know that, we're trying to attune to this feminine energy, which is flow through it. But then that Tarian energy also comes up, which is like determined and ready to like just deliberately take moves. It's like, how much can we just keep going into this death and rebirth cycle until we can finally start building foundation? What do you think of that?
So as you were talking, like this image is just so strong and so stark. So for my personal chart, I have Taurus. I have a Taurus North Node. So this coming eclipse in 27 Taurus is right on my North Node. What our North Node is in our natal chart actually is sort of like our mountain, and this part or this archetype where we don't understand, it's unknown to us because it's directly opposite of our comfort zone. So for me, watching Karina being really embodied and being deliberate with a Sag Sun and all this Gemini action, it's like it's totally unfamiliar territory. And to just really watch this bull looking sweet and cute and in nature, I'm like, okay, I'm already feeling like when you were saying soften, soften. I could hear your voice like repeatedly saying, just be softer, be more deliberate, like enough with the shadow. It's really time to get to work and be deliberate with your action, be deliberate with the resources that you accumulate, because we're supposed to be self-sustaining. Is the energy that I'm getting with the changing of the guards into Taurus. So you want to dive deeper into more Taurian archetypes, Miss Taurus Moon?
I think a huge one that to some people it's considered taboo, but I think we have to talk about it, is money and the connection that we have and that we're putting on money to determine our worth. And I was listening to a couple of like astrologers talk earlier. I was listening to Braca and I was listening to Pam. And then all of a sudden, last night I put my perfect timing actually. I put my YouTube back to autoplay. And so the next thing that came on was a video by Sadhguru talking about how what's become so important to humans is, and that everything is dripping with these subjects, every magazine, every show, every, maybe not conversation, but a lot of things in the media are dripping with these subjects, and these subjects are money and sex. How fitting is it that Scorpio and Taurus, right?
Mm,
And I think it's becoming interesting because we're now getting the chance to detach
mm,
the idea of having our worth with money, because money is really like growing exponentially. Or like, come on, once upon a time 20 pesos was still something.
mm,
Today, is anything under 100 pesos even enough to get you a meal?
mm.
Like, um which kind of like, I don't know, it makes me question, like, where is money going? What is happening with currency? Why are we still, or some of us still, allowing money to determine our worth when we've already learned that our worth is so much more than what this vessel can hold? Because what this vessel is a container for the magic that Scorpio brings. What this vessel is the body that we have to finally create something after it simmering and being here and creating all the witchcraft and magic with it, finally being like, I know what it is,
Mm,
let's go. And there is a big chance that will take a while. There, like,
mm,
Taurus takes a long time to get up off its ass. It's like,
mm,
okay, I'm gonna simmer. Is this
mm,
really what I want? Of course, different from Capricorn, because Capricorn will then strategize and look for the goals and all of these things. But it takes a minute to be like, yo, move, you bull. And then the
mm.
bull is like, okay, I'll just go look for I'll just go look cute for a picture. This bull is so cute. Um,
Oh.
but yeah, I feel like that's the energy that I'm getting. And then also, of course, starting to consider values and what even are values. I really feel like values are changing. The way we think about values are changing,
Mm,
because we're realizing that more than values, it's about vibes,
mm,
it's about energy,
mm,
it's about the energy you're calling in rather than what you believe in. And the reason I say this is because of all this Aquarius action we've been having with Saturn and Jupiter, and now Jupiter being about to move into Pisces in the next couple of months.
mm.
But I'm going way too far, so I'm going to bring it back to you. What are your thoughts on Taurus and what else this may feel like, or what we may be understanding more of or seeing more of in the next 18 months?
I want to bring up that Uranus is still in Taurus, and we touched up on Uranus and Taurus in last year's video too. But again, this is like a long, slow, tumbling planet, and this is revolutionary. And for Uranus, the planet of awakening, sudden change, lightning bolts in solid Earth, it's force and an immovable object. Just that's what I always get. So, keywords wise, the last time that we had a north node in Taurus was around 2003, 2004. 2003, 2004, we had I want to say, like, severe climate, um a lot of catastrophic, like that big tsunami happened in 2004. Facebook launched in 2004. So, like, how valuable is Facebook now versus how valuable was Facebook back then in 2004? And now that they're having a nodal return, how are they reevaluating or revaluating what's valuable for them? That's what's coming up for me, world stage wise, and also a lot of disruptions and how we really tend to the earth. We talked about this before, but it's going to keep coming up until 2026. So how I see that playing out in the economy is, well, obviously NFTs, definitely a lot of digital currency still. It may still be erratic, but there may be a lot of change, as Karina said, to how we value values, how we relate to relationships, will be a continuous theme, and how we can actually be more self-sustaining because of all the changes that's happening around of us, all the changes that's happening in the economy. What will be like, what will this crystal be worth when, what will material things, so property, land, ownership of property, ownership of um, your portfolio, how can you divest and make sure that you actually have different things, because it's still a lot of change and mutability. Although we're moving to a fixed nodal axis, there's still a lot of mutability. So how can you divest is like what I want to say, but I'm gonna hold there and bring back to the lighter side that you bring.
I like that all a lot. And I was also thinking about our vessel. What is our vessel going to be worth? What are our bodies going to be worth? I mean, not that our bodies have a price, but can we start giving enough value to our bodies, and can we start appreciating it for what it does for us? Can we start saying thank you, hands, for actually letting me build things? Thank you, body, for letting me experience the beauty in this life. Like beauty. What happened to beauty? The past 2 years, as COVID has been such a huge thing, it's kind of like everything beautiful has gone out the door. Well, of course, there are still those of us that are like, we found something beautiful during this time. There are so many people that are also, of course, mourning, grieving, but natural. So much has happened.
Mm.
But can we start finding the beauty within the grief? Can we start finding the beauty within the ruckus, within the chaos, within the structural damage, within, there are so many things that are changing. And like you're saying, Uranus and Taurus, things are going to keep changing. But we're in this body so that we can experience all of this around us. We're in this body so that we can feel. And it seems like through this whole thing, we've forgotten what our body is even for. How many of us move our bodies every day anymore? How many of us actually build things with our hands instead of go on our computer and kind of just program something, which obviously that's still building things on your hands with your hands, but then it's just so attached and connected that this Taurus and Aquarius archetypes, which are square, are so deeply woven together right now. Our bodies and technology, like they're almost one. How often do we put down our phone? Like so rare. And this brings me to a topic that I was thinking about recently, which was, I was thinking about why is it that we can remember to charge our phones and make sure it's charged up to 100%, but we can't remember to charge our bodies the same way? Why? Why do we allow ourselves to lack sleep? Why do we allow ourselves to run on 2 hours of sleep instead of 8 hours of sleep, which is what will actually fill our battery? And so I think a lot of this is going to be coming really forward for us. Also understanding what we eat, understanding how we're getting this machine to actually be a body instead of a machine. Because again, I don't know, Aquarius just feels so dormant with everything going on with Aquarius right now. I don't know if I meant dormant. I think I meant dominant. Aquarius just feels so dominant right now. And so it's just how can we return back into this body that when we're like crocheting something or coloring something or writing something, because it's in this place that we remember that, there is beauty within ourselves that we're actually able to extract, as compared to when we're on our computers maybe and getting distracted and then not even giving ourselves credit because we got confused, and then we started procrastinating, and then instead of creating something beautiful, we were consuming. I don't know, I feel like I went on a whole tangent, but that's what just came through me.
No, I think it still aligns, because Taurus and Scorpio are opposites of like they're on the same axis, but they're polarities, they're
Yep.
extremes. And you were saying everything, so the keywords that you were talking about, bringing the magic from Scorpio actually out and manifesting it into form, into matter, which is Taurus, which is earth. Really like valuing beauty again, because the past it was in Gemini and Sagittarius, we were all about, okay, we're on the screen, so it's okay to be in pajamas. But by the next 18 months, everyone's going to be out and about again. So they're going to remember how to put on lipstick and makeup and refresh their clothing. So, and you said about food, people are going to keep going out again and actually enjoy food outside. And also like bringing up Jupiter entering Pisces. So like boundaries, there may be boundaries that will be put down, and expansion, whatever, that's a tangent. But going back to Taurus and Scorpio, and I'm going to bring the dark again, it's yes, we're going to appreciate the Taurus side, but we appreciate that because we're being asked to move away from the darkness that is Scorpio, the intensity that is Scorpio. So because all of the intensity and the darkness are actually going to come to light, again, because of the eclipses being in Scorpio, we're going to be confronted with all of these shadow sides, and even the shadow side of Taurus, which is like that slow stubbornness, being too deliberate, like taking so long to actually decide because they're so comfortable. We're going to see that too. And also we're going to see a lot of probably greenwashing. A lot of companies are going to want to talk about, okay, we're going to save the planet, so climate change agenda. But how much of that will actually be true? And how much of that will actually be a manipulation to make more money, which is also Scorpio, manipulation of money, Taurus and Scorpio. So at least you know, and we can build awareness around these things. What is actually of value to you? We keep saying this, and individually, we have to understand what values we hold and how sturdy, how can we build these foundations around our values so that whatever is happening around us, whatever manipulation, whatever shadow, like whatever behind the scenes that are actually playing out, we know it's true. And those are also the lessons that are bringing, that we're carrying forth from the Gemini Sag lessons into Taurus Scorpio, because we know already we can't easily be manipulated. That's why knowing and being so discerning, because we're really aligned with what's valuable for us, that it's not easy for us to be manipulated. And like the bigger powers, or like the bigger scorpionic archetypes, won't easily sting us should they put in maneuvers or tactics or marketing or whatever words have you there to actually sway us into what they feel should be valuable because it's valuable to them.
That all made a lot of sense. And this is just a little reminder to read the label when you think something is good for you. Mm. Because with all that greenwashing, like you were saying, like one time I bought this brand, Love Beauty Planet, I think it's called.
And strong marketing.
And then you go read the back, and it's still by Unilever, right? I believe it's Unilever.
Yep.
And it still has all these ingredients that we don't understand, don't know, can't pronounce. And so when you think something is healthy or good for the environment, or you know, anything like this, please do your research. I think that's what this Gemini North Node has taught us. Like, do your research. It's not that hard. And so now that we're actually coming back into our bodies, it's coming back into our bodies, but still remembering the resources that we gained while we were so connected to the internet. But lots of darkness still, lots of darkness gonna wanna prevail, lots of mystery gonna be looming in the air. Like, you know, Scorpio is amazing at getting you to talk about yourself, but never sharing about itself. And so notice, just be aware of what's going on, what kind of conversations you're having during this time. But there's such beauty to Scorpio because there is such unbelievable depth.
Mm,
Like, you can have the deepest conversation on a regular day with a Scorpio and they would think it's usual.
mm,
Go and try to have the same conversation with a Gemini and they're gonna be like, what the heck are you talking about, are you crazy? But the Scorpio archetype is just such a gift to humanity because it's so magical, it's so intuitive, it's so charming when it wants to be, but also, as you were saying, quite manipulative when it's not aligned. When the Taurus values are not aligned, Scorpio can so easily just be creating things that just works for them rather than for everybody else.
mm,
Like you're saying, greenwashing, people, I don't want to say people in power, but the people, you guys get it. So lots of that coming up, lots of secrets coming out, lots of mysteries. Maybe secrets actually stay hidden
mm,
because it's South Node in Scorpio. So maybe the 3D world, maybe that's why things are opening up again, to hide all the mysteries that's actually going on below the surface, right? Because Turians want to enjoy. Turians are like, yes, let's eat all the good food and drink all the good drinks. Let's love on people. Let's mother people. Let's be friends with everybody.
mm,
Super innocent and naive. And then you have the complete opposite, Scorpio, being like, are you sure you want to love on everybody? Are you sure you want to trust everybody? Because there are people that deserve your trust, but there are also people that don't deserve your trust.
mm,
It's the reminder that, I don't want to say evil, there is darkness in the world. And no matter what we do, there will be darkness in the world. Again, a lesson from Gemini. And so I love the way the archetypes set us up. Like, how beautiful is it that we were taught to first witness that the duality exists and all of this before we're now like, okay, but look, you can have extreme beauty or you can have extreme darkness. And the funny thing about Scorpio, like, I'm just looking at it right now, and you can't imagine when it's going to sting.
mm,
You can't imagine when it's just going to slide down. Like, you just don't know. It's so sneaky. And so, like you were saying, it's just so important to have your values intact so that the magic, instead of overpowering who you are, actually is able to allow you to present yourself in the way that you actually want to be.
mm,
And that pulls in Leo and Aquarius as well. That's, what kind of roles are you playing? What kind of actor or actress are you being? Because what are you trying to hide? And are you going too close only to what you want to show? Or are you allowing yourself to be an open book? Or are you just hiding everything?
mm, mm, mm. And I like that. And I'm going to tie in the Mercury retrogrades that we're going to get next year. So we said that the Mercury retrogrades that we're going to get after the Jupiter Saturn conjunction would be in air. And we started, like, all the Mercury retrogrades this year were in air signs, and they haven't been for the past couple of years because they've been in water signs. But next year they're actually going to be in air still, but they're going to retrograde back to Earth. So we're getting this reminder, this reassessment, this reevaluation, everything um from air, which is all about the information that we get, all about like everything that's outside, everything that's been up, like going up. Remember, like the triangle, air actually points upward, it's too expansive, and then it reels back into an earth sign. So the first Mercury retrograde that we're going to have, I think in February, is going to start in Aquarius, but it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn. So Mercury is like, okay, how are you actually communicating what you're thinking about? How are you grounding that back to your values? How are you setting foundation? And how are you initiating change? Which is Mercury and Capricorn also. How are you thinking about the foundations, and how are you thinking about your success? How are you thinking about being a leader of your own life before you're allowing the powers that be to manipulate you? So we've been talking a lot about Scorpio's dark side, but like the better side of Scorpio is Scorpios are so strategic, and they're actually very good detectives and accountants. They're very good with money. They're very good with organizing power. And power doesn't have to be always bad. Again, it's how we use it. If we use it to dominate versus empower, then good or bad are just perceptions and meanings that we put in, and this can be subjective, which is what we learned in Gemini, that there's so many perspectives and point of views that we can put in a certain word. And also deep water. So Scorpio rules deep, still waters. So in the surface, we think nothing's going on. So this is what Karina said. Maybe a lot of secrets are going to continue to be under the water, because actually that's where all the pressure builds up. So if you notice lakes versus ocean, if I remember my dive school, lakes actually have, or still waters have, the pressure is greater because the water is still, versus when the water is moving, then there's actually more buoyancy, if I'm getting that correct. So, but what I'm just getting energetically is that's why it's so intense. It's known to be so intense because it's so pressurized. But once it boils, like once it pops, it freaking pops. That's why it stings like a freaking Scorpio.
The Pleiadians. Yeah, partly, I believe. I still haven't figured out who exactly I channel, but I think I am convinced that the Pleiadians are part of them, because a lot of time when I go and listen to what Ashley Wood is saying, I'm like, oh, I got the same thing. So it may be coming from the same place. And they are very playful and fun and just so loving. And I think that is very Taurus energy. It's just the reminder to love, to appreciate the beauty, to come back to the truth, to remember who you are, to trust who you are at your core, you know, all these Turian themes. And I love how you were sharing about pressure, because I see that in Scorpios that I know, right? That it builds and builds and builds, and then finally when it can't build, it shoots, and when it shoots, it's painful, and it's just one word. It could just be one word, and it's like, ouch. Do you even know how hard you stung me? And they're like, no, I was just telling the truth. And so with that, with Scorpio, it's just so straightforward. It's this is it, and so I'm gonna say it. Versus with Taurus, it's kind of like, okay, let's make it a little bit beautiful, which kind of gives me hope, because then maybe that's what's going to be happening for the next year or so, that instead of stinging everywhere from here to there, we're kind of like, okay, let's be friends. Let's see how we can have a conversation about this. How can we use our throat to actually come up with agreements, or to be able to speak more instead of chatting or talking online, because that way you're hearing the tone, you're able to feel the, like, this is something. You put your hand on your throat while you're talking and you feel that there's like energy coming out, of course. Yes. And so it's the reminder that everybody's voice actually has something behind it. It's the reminder that you can feel the person just through their voice. It's more voice messaging over text messaging, because you finally understand that inside the human, there is a spirit. And sometimes when you're talking through technology, you forget the spirit, or the spirit doesn't appear, because technology is almost like its own kind of spirit. I love how you were talking about the pressurized point, because then you imagine our root chakra finally being so pressurized that it's like, it's time to pop. But then instead of popping open to the ground, because we're building up from the ground, it's time to pop here. It's time to allow it to finally come out. It's time to, like you said, create things in the world, build things, work on foundations, because foundations are very important. And when Scorpio is so pressured to finally get it out, their focus is so insane. Give a Scorpio a task that they're really, really passionate about, and the way they follow through and the way they work at it, is unmatched. But there's the tricky part. If they're not passionate about it, so if it's something you're not passionate about, it's really hard. But that's good too, because then you'll see that maybe when you're not too focused on something, it's because you're not really into it. You're not really passionate about it. Which, yeah, I don't know. Word vomit.
So for those born on September 1984 until April 1986, congratulations, you guys are going to be on your nodal return. So nodal returns, what that actually means, it's actually good luck. it's a lot of energies because the collective energy is supporting your nodal evolution. So everything that we talked about, if what we talked about Taurus, and I feel this and I share this with you, how we should be more deliberate, how we should remember how we can embody, appreciate our bodies, appreciate our worth. These are lessons that are going to come up for you. For those who have Pluto and Scorpio, or for those who have a lot of fixed energies, or they have their luminary, so their sun or their moon in Scorpio, or have their ascendant in Scorpio, you may be asked or invited to really reflect on the darker sides of Scorpio and how you can actually assimilate more of the Taurus nature, which is how can you bring your magic into form, and like everything else that we said earlier. For those born from February 1994 until end of July of 1995, you guys have your North Node in Scorpio. So this is going to be a reverse nodal return for you.
It's been confusing because it's uncharted territory. Like Theo was saying, it's something like your South Node is something that you know so well. It's something that you're so used to. It's something that you operate based on. It's your comfort zone. Your North Node is something that you're still trying to understand. And so with those being opposite each other, it's like, to understand the lessons, I really had to dive deep into like just a couple lessons, because that's the only way you're really going to understand something so large. But it also helps you understand because it's like everybody in the collective is feeling the similar energy. And so you don't feel singled out like, oh my God, I'm the only one that doesn't understand this energy. It's more like, okay, all of us are learning this together right now, which makes it a little more comfortable. Yeah, I think it just made me quite confused, just like, okay, right now I'm going through here, but then I'm actually meant to go here because my North Node is in Sagittarius, which basically explains that, I'm meant to believe in what I believe in. I'm meant to actually stand tall in the beliefs that I hold. But this whole season has taught me, wait a second, what even are beliefs? Are beliefs even anything? So then my North Node in Sagittarius is now questioning, okay, what are these beliefs that I've built my life up upon? And then trying to understand this whole community thing, because for so long I've been like, no, community doesn't work for me because I've been immersed in the wrong community. So it's just a play on these signs. It's just a play on the same signs, because at the end of the day, Gemini and Sag, just like Scorpio and Taurus, are the same. They're the same at their core, but they just manifest themselves differently. Taurus is more about physical pleasure, and Scorpio is more about emotional pleasure or emotional
sensitivity.
There you go, sensitivity. But I do want to say that there is also a big sensitivity with Taurus, but it's a more stubborn kind of sensitivity and
sensual, more of like physical sensitivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas with Scorpio, it's more like intensity, like water,
passion,
yeah,
sexuality,
there you go,
erotic dreams. Anything like that is in Scorpio's territory. And anything about the occult or anything that you're like, what the heck, did they just say that? That's Scorpio's territory. And so they're two sides of the same coin. I know I said it's confusing, but it's actually really fun because you get to learn a theme that you're not used to and you get to learn it with the rest of the world. And so a reverse nodal return, although it seems a little bit confusing, has actually a lot of beautiful gifts because now that I'm simmering, like, oh, what have I learned through this time? It's like, oh, I've actually learned a lot that's going to help me moving forward and understanding these guards that we're now about to have guarding our own karma or
Yeah.
destiny.
Yeah. And also, these are the cross quarter days. So Scorpio is around the time of Samhain. So that's the descent of the sun. So, like we mentioned, that's why we had keywords about the underworld, death, and rebirth. But Taurus is all about fertility because Taurus is Beltane. That's like spring. So again, they're the same, but not really. They're in the same axis, but they reflect each other, although they're opposites. So how can we remember that within that death and rebirth and all that destruction is actually abundance and fertility? Because it means that however we keep dying, that's the same number of times that we keep being reborn. And there's so much beauty and abundance and fertility in that. And that it's just really part of the process. But then now for the next 18 months, how can we actually be more practical with that death and rebirth, with the magic, with the taboo? And I say this with a bunch of salt, not just a grain, probably a sack of salt, throwing it your way, because Jupiter is entering Pisces. And Pisces is also the sign of the mystic, the sign of the creative, the sign of the artist. And Jupiter is expanding that. Jupiter having been in Saturnian ruled signs the past 2 years, Jupiter is freaking exhausted and just so excited to be in a sign that Jupiter rules. And so there may be too much extreme magic, mysticism, mystical, like all the Taurian plus a Taurus North node. So again, like throwing this sack of salt your way, use it wisely, use it to cleanse, whatever, however you can use salt, use it to purge, make moon salt baths, go dive on in salt water, use the salt, don't just leave it there. It's just really different next year because of that Jupiter in Pisces. So yeah, look out around April, the next 18 months, whatever revolutions that they're going to find, how they're going to use that. CRISPR. 2003, the United States and the UK worked together in what they call the shock and awe campaign. You're in shock and awe. And bombed Baghdad based on false threats of weapons of mass destruction. So false threats, veils. Again, I think the same themes, but probably different. And again, severe weather. A bunch of tornadoes hit the United States, highest temperature in the UK, bunch of earthquakes, the 2004 tsunami. And again, I mentioned Facebook launched in 2004. So just watch out for the next 18 months. What same themes around DNA, health, shock and awe, around the earth, severe weather, because these things keep, like the themes keep coming up every 19 years. So this is what we call the metonic cycle that happens every 19 years, and the eclipse cycle that comes in families. So yeah, it's just a bunch of lessons that keep coming up for us, and it's all part of our human evolution. Everything is neutral. The meanings that we put into the events actually hold weight more than the actual events themselves. So the biggest, to end this, probably what I just want to say is be so fixed and determined as you build that foundations and as you find the values that are really aligned with the purpose that you find yourself in this lifetime, but be adaptable and mutable to change. And if you can choose change before change chooses you, because Taurus, like these fixed signs are known to be stubborn, and usually they don't really change until it's like the last millisecond. So hopefully you don't wait for that last millisecond before you consider change. How about you, Karina?
I definitely agree that we wait till the last millisecond, having a fixed fixed sun and moon. It's like, are we really gonna change? Yeah, I'm gonna change. Am I really gonna? Yeah, I am. Am I really gonna? And then finally it's like, yo, are you gonna do it? And it's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna do it now. So I agree with Thea. Let's not do that. I think there will be a lot of times that will be asking us to change, a lot of times that will be asking us to be mutable, especially with the way the world is right now. And so I want to say use this fixed energy to remember how determined you are, how easy it is for you to actually create habits, how it just takes 21 days to create a new habit. Like that's the gift of Taurus. It's remembering that as long as you believe in your worth, you can create something unbelievable, something never seen. You can create something new that is tangible through something that you feel, through your heart, through your this what did we say? The pressure that's building in you. There is always something to be created, and use the fixed energy for focus, because there is a lot of focus there. As much as there is there is stubbornness, because there is focus. There is stubbornness because there is courage. There is stubbornness because you know what's right for you. And so this energy is like, bring out what you know is right for you instead of being so mutable. There is also that part that's like, stop being so changeable. Yes, be changeable, but don't be so changeable that you forget your values. Don't be so changeable that you forget who you are or what you're creating in this lifetime. But be so changeable that when disruptions come your way, you're not reacting as Thea began this, but instead you're responding. You're not trying to do something because you have to right now. Use Taurus. Be a little more deliberate. Take responsibility. Again, like Thea said, comes full circle. Yeah, I think that's what I want to end this with. And remember to find the beauty, because it's there. Taurus will remind you. I can also pull a card to see what falls out before we stop recording.
So while Karina is shuffling and pulling the card, definitely habits come back to your body. What new habits and routine can you actually put in? Use the next 18 months to build that routine for you. Because whatever you build for the next 18 months may stick. Like this is the stuff of long-term foundational things to actually have a fixed nodal axis.
So we had three cards fall out.
Mhm.
First one is activated Earth. Of course, it's Earth. The Earth is activated. It says, power places, ley lines, trust where you're led. A lot of times we feel like we're stuck where we are. I know you and I both feel like we're stuck in the city and we can't get out. But it's because there is work here. It's because this is where we're meant to be right now. So wherever you are right now is exactly where you're meant to be, because there is a grid, an invisible grid through everywhere. And where we step our feet on every single day, it's stepping on that grid. So what are you channeling when you're stepping through that grid? Are you channeling joy? Are you channeling beauty? Are you channeling anger? Are you challenging war? I mean, are you channeling war? Like there are so many things you can channel. But remember that you're there because you're meant to be there. And then I love this card. This is one of my favorite cards, Whale and Orca Elders. It says, share your song, frequency of sound, diving deep. As Thea just did, that's the throat chakra. That's so Taurus. But if you're not trusting where you are, if you're not trusting that you're exactly where you're meant to be, you don't have a solid foundation to stand on so that you're actually able to share your song. So how can you trust so that you're finally able to be like, okay, now the land that I live in is fine. I don't need to change anything about this. Now I can dive deep into myself, because the only frequencies that are around you are the frequencies that need to be around you, instead of like chaotic energy. And then this is also Scorpio energy, because it's diving deep. Can you dive deep before you share? there's going to be a lot of like throat action because people are just going to be talking and talking and talking about how they feel about things. But before you talk, can you dive deep so that what you're saying actually makes sense? Because if not, there's just going to be, as what happened with Gemini, there's just going to be too many words that have no meaning, and we don't want that. And the last one is breath of the cosmos. My will to thy will, and micromanaging the universe. And so the question just becomes, where are you forcing? Now that we're moving from masculine to feminine energy, where can you float? Where can you trust? Again, trust where you are. How can you trust the universe? How can you trust the unseen? And it will be a challenge because Taurus needs tangible proof always, all the time. Taurus wants to see, Taurus wants to feel. But a lesson from Scorpio is surrender, 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 soften, surrender. Yeah. I think these are beautiful cards to have fallen out.
Super perfect, as always. Thank you everyone for joining us. And we're so grateful and honored to grow with you. And yay. Bye. Until next time.
Thank you.